The key stuck in the gallery lock for the third time, and I cursed under my breath. It was past midnight, hours after I should have left, but the Klimt exhibition had to be perfect for tomorrow's opening. 3 years as assistant curator at the Sinclair Gallery, and this was my first solo show. I couldn't afford mistakes. That's when I heard the gunshot. The sound cracked through the autumn air like breaking glass, close enough that I felt it in my chest. My hands froze on the lock, my breath catching as instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet wouldn't move, couldn't move. 2 men burst from the alley beside the gallery, their footsteps pounding against wet pavement. One was supporting the other, no, dragging him. Even in the dim streetlight, I could see the blood. Dark and spreading across an expensive suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. They stumbled to a stop 15 feet from where I stood, paralyzed like prey in a predator's sight. The wounded man collapsed against a car, his breathing labored. The other man, taller, broader, with dark hair and eyes that caught the streetlight like polished obsidian, turned his head. Our eyes met. 3 seconds. That's all it took to change my life. 3 seconds of eye contact with a stranger whose face I suddenly knew I would never forget. Sharp features, a jaw tight with tension, and a gaze that assessed me with the cold calculation of someone used to making life or death decisions in milliseconds. Blood spattered his shirt. A gun hung loosely in his right hand. "Run," he said, his voice deep and accent touched. Russian, maybe. Eastern European. Now. The command broke my paralysis. My phone was in my hand before I realized I'd reached for it, my fingers dialing 911 with muscle memory. I should have run. He'd told me to run. But the wounded man was dying. I could see it in the grey pallor of his skin, the way his breathing had turned shallow. "I need an ambulance," I said into the phone, my voice steadier than I felt. "There's been a shooting." The dark-eyed man swore in a language I didn't understand. He hauled his companion back into the shadows of the alley, and they disappeared like ghosts. Like they'd never been there at all, except for the blood on the sidewalk, and my perfect memory of his face. The 911 operator was asking questions I barely heard. Address, description, number of shots. I answered automatically, my art history training making me precise with details even as my hands shook. Dark hair, 6'2", maybe 6'3". Mediterranean complexion. Expensive suit, tailored. Approximately 35 years old. Sirens wailed in the distance. That's when the black Chevys arrived, not police. I knew that immediately, from the way they moved, coordinated, military precise, dangerous. 3 vehicles, no markings, tinted windows that reflected the streetlights like dead eyes. Men emerged in dark suits, earpieces visible, weapons barely concealed. I dropped my phone. The leader approached me with the casual confidence of someone who'd never been told no in his life. Blonde hair slicked back, pale eyes that looked grey in the streetlight, and a smile that made my stomach turn. He stopped too close, invading my personal space with deliberate intent. "Elena Chun," he said, and my blood ran cold. He knew my name. "I'm told you made a phone call." My voice cracked. "There was a shooting. Someone was hurt. And what did you see?" He took another step closer. I backed against the gallery door, the key still stuck in the lock, trapping me. "What exactly did this person look like?" "I didn't see anything," I lied. "It was dark." They ran before I could. His finger traced along my cheekbone, the touch light but unmistakably threatening. I jerked away, my back hitting the door hard enough to hurt. His smile widened. "Lying is unwise, Miss Chun, especially to me." He leaned in, his breath hot against my ear. "I'm Konstantin Petrov, and we're going to be seeing a lot of each other until you remember what you saw." Terror locked my throat. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, could barely breathe. "We'll be in touch," he murmured, finally stepping back. He gestured to his men, and they returned to their vehicles with the same eerie coordination. Within seconds, they were gone. I stood frozen against the door, shaking so violently I could hear my keys rattling. That's when I heard the footsteps behind me. I spun, expecting Konstantin's return, expecting violence. Instead, I found a different man. Taller than the dark-eyed stranger from the alley, broader through the shoulders, with slate-grey eyes that assessed me with an intensity that felt like a physical touch. He wore a black suit that fit like it had been made for him, probably had been. His dark hair was slightly longer than fashionable, swept back from a face that belonged on Roman statues. Handsome in a harsh, unforgiving way. The kind of handsome that came with danger. "Elena Chun," he said. And unlike Constantine, my name in his mouth sounded like something precious. He had an accent too, but his was more refined, controlled. "I'm Damien Cross." The name meant nothing to me. Should it have? He stepped closer, and I pressed harder against the door. But unlike Constantine, he stopped at a respectful distance. His eyes travelled over my face, lingering on where Constantine's finger had traced my cheekbone. "Did he touch you?" The question was quiet, but I heard the steel beneath. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Something dangerous flickered in his expression, there and gone in an instant. But I'd seen it, rage barely contained. "Then we have a problem," Damien Cross said, his voice dropping to a lethal register. "Because you just became the most dangerous woman in Chicago." Damien Cross didn't ask for permission. That was the first thing I learned about him. Within 20 minutes of introducing himself, he had 2 of his men sweeping my apartment for surveillance devices, while a third packed a bag with my clothes and essentials. I stood in my living room, my sanctuary of carefully curated art prints and second-hand furniture watching. Strangers rifled through my life with clinical efficiency. "You can't just—" I started. "I can," Damien interrupted, his attention on his phone as he fired off rapid commands in Russian to someone on the other end. "And I am. This is kidnapping." He looked up then, those slate-grey eyes pinning me in place. "This is protection. There's a difference. I didn't ask for your protection. You called 911 after witnessing Konstantin Petrov execute a man in cold blood." His voice remained calm, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. "You saw his face. You became a witness. The moment Constantine touched you, his jaw tightened. You became his problem to solve. And Constantine solves problems permanently." The casual way he said it made my stomach drop. "Then I'll go to the police. Witness protection won't work." Damien pocketed his phone and moved closer. Not threatening, but commanding space with the same ease he commanded his men. "Constantine has police on his payroll, judges, federal agents. He'll know where you are within hours, and you'll disappear before anyone can protect you." "And you're different?" I demanded, anger cutting through my fear. "You show up out of nowhere. You know my name. You have armed men. You're just like him." "No," Damien said quietly, and something in his tone made me stop. "I'm nothing like him. But I'm the only person in this city with the resources and the motivation to keep you alive." "What motivation? You don't even know me." His eyes held mine. "Konstantin Petrov is my rival. Has been for 5 years. We've maintained a careful balance. He controls the north side. I control the south, and we don't interfere with each other's operations." He paused. "Until tonight, when he executed my accountant in your alley, and then put his hands on a civilian under my watch." "Your watch?" "I don't belong to you. You do now." The statement hung in the air between us, audacious and absolute. I should have been terrified. Should have run screaming. But something in the way he said it, not cruel, not possessive in the way Constantine had been, but protective, made me hesitate. Mr. Cross, one of his men, called from my bedroom. "We're clear. No surveillance. Good. Finish packing." Damien turned back to me. "We need to leave. Now. I'm not going anywhere until you explain what's really happening." He studied me for a long moment, and I saw a flicker of something like respect in his expression. "In the car. We're exposed here." The car was a black Mercedes with windows so dark I couldn't see through them. Bulletproof, I realized with a chill. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne sandalwood and something darker, more masculine. Damien slid in beside me, close enough that I felt his body heat. The door closed, sealing us in, and the driver pulled away from my building without a word. "Konstantin Petrov runs trafficking operations," Damien began, his voice low. "Weapons, drugs, people. He's been expanding aggressively into territory that was previously neutral. 3 weeks ago, I received intelligence that he was planning something big, something that would upset the balance of power in Chicago. Your accountant, I whispered, understanding. Marcus was bringing me proof. Bank records, shipping manifests, evidence of Constantine's deals with the Serbian cartel. Damien's hands clenched briefly. Constantine found out. Marcus died for it. And I saw it happen. You saw Constantine's face during an execution. You're a loose end. He turned to look at me, and in the dim light of the passing street lamps, his features looked carved from stone. He won't stop until you're dead, or he's certain you won't talk. My mouth went dry. So what do I do? You trust me. I don't know you. You will. It wasn't arrogance in his voice. Just certainty. I'm taking you to a secure location. Penthouse, bulletproof windows, armed guards on every entrance. You'll stay there until I neutralize the threat. How long will that take? As long as necessary. The car pulled into an underground garage, and Damien's men immediately surrounded the vehicle. Welcome to your new home, Alina. The penthouse was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. Modern furniture in shades of grey and white, art on the walls that I recognized as original pieces worth more than I'd make in 10 years. A gilded cage. Damien walked me through the space, pointing out exits, security features, the panic button by the bed. His men stationed themselves at strategic points, silent, watchful, armed. You have 3 rules, Damien said, stopping in the living room to face me. 1. You don't leave this penthouse without my explicit permission. 2. You don't contact anyone, friends, family, co-workers, until I say it's safe. 3. You don't trust anyone except my men. And you, I said, hearing the bitterness in my own voice. I'm supposed to trust you. He stepped closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Close enough that I caught his scent against sandalwood and gunpowder. I realized. Violence and refinement in equal measure. Yes, he said softly. You trust me, Elena, because I'm the only thing standing between you and a bullet. His hand rose, hovering near my cheek where Constantine had touched but not making contact. And because Constantine putting his hands on someone under my protection is a declaration of war, his eyes held mine, burning with intensity. And I don't lose wars. 3 days in the penthouse, and I was losing my mind. The space was beautiful, no question about that. But beauty didn't change the fact that it was a prison. I paced the same marble floors, stared out the same bulletproof windows, ate meals prepared by a chef I never saw. The only human contact came from Damien's guards, who spoke to me in monosyllables when they spoke at all. Damien himself visited twice daily, morning and evening like clockwork. He'd check the security reports, ask if I needed anything, his presence both comforting and deeply unsettling. He moved through space like violence barely contained, all controlled power and watchful eyes that tracked every movement. You can't keep me here forever, I told him on the 3rd night, unable to hide my frustration anymore. He looked up from the tablet he'd been reviewing. I can keep you here as long as it takes to ensure your safety. I'm going insane, Damien. I need air. Real air, not recycled penthouse atmosphere. Something flickered in his expression. Sympathy, maybe. It's too dangerous. Everything is dangerous now. At least let me step onto the terrace for 5 minutes. Please. The word seemed to affect him. He studied me for a long moment, those grey eyes seeing too much. Finally, he nodded. Tomorrow. 10 minutes. I'll be with you. I should have known it wouldn't last. The next evening, Damien arrived precisely at 7. He'd shed his usual suit jacket, wearing only black pants and a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. I caught myself staring at his forearms, the corded muscle, the faint scars that suggested a history of violence. Ready? He asked, catching me looking. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Heat crept up my neck. Yes. The terrace was on the west side of the penthouse, offering a panoramic view of Chicago's skyline as the sun set. The November air hit my lungs like ice water, sharp and clean and absolutely perfect. I closed my eyes, breathing deeply, feeling almost human again. Better? Damien stood close, his body angled slightly in front of mine. Protective, even here. Better, I agreed, opening my eyes to watch the city lights begin to flicker on. Thank you for this. Elena. The glass door behind us exploded. I didn't even have time to scream. Damien moved with inhuman speed, his body slamming into mine, driving me down to the terrace floor. His weight covered me completely as more glass shattered, raining down around us in deadly fragments. Stay down, he growled against my ear, his voice rough with command. Another shot. Then another. I felt Damien tense above me, heard him bark orders in Russian to his men. Footsteps thundered inside the penthouse, shouting. The sharp crack of return fire. Then silence. Damien remained frozen over me, his chest pressed to my back, his breath hot against my neck. I could feel his heart hammering, the only sign he was affected at all. Are you hurt? His hands moved over me with startling gentleness, checking for injuries. No, I don't think so. My voice shook. Damien, it's nothing. He shifted his weight, and I saw the blood. Dark and spreading across his left shoulder, soaking through the white shirt. That's not nothing. I tried to sit up, but he kept me pinned with one hand. Glass cut. I'm fine. He pulled me to my feet with his good arm, already moving us back inside. Dmitri. One of his men appeared, weapon drawn. High-powered rifle, sir. Shooter was across the street. We've dispatched a team. Locked down the building. No one in or out without my clearance. Damien's jaw was tight with barely contained fury. And get me a first aid kit. I watched, shaking, as he stripped off his ruined shirt with mechanical efficiency. The wound was worse than he'd admitted, a deep gash that needed stitches. But his hands were steady as he pressed gauze to it, his expression calm. You threw yourself in front of me, I whispered. His eyes met mine. Yes, you could have been killed. Better me than you. The simple statement hit me like a physical blow. This man, this dangerous, complicated man I'd known for 3 days, had just taken a bullet for me without hesitation. Before I could process that, one of his men entered with a phone. Said, "Message from Petrov." Damien's expression turned to stone. He took the phone and I watched his face darken as he read whatever was on the screen. Then he turned it to show me. A photo. Me on the terrace, wind in my hair, the sunset behind me. Beautiful, if not for the red crosshairs drawn over my face and digital marker. And below it, a message in neat block letters. She looks delicate. I wonder how easily she breaks. My blood turned to ice. Damien's hand crushed the phone, the case cracking under his grip. When he looked at me, his eyes burned with a fury that was almost physical. Pack her things, he said, his voice deadly quiet. She's coming home with me. To my personal residence. It's where I can protect her myself. Damien, I started. Constantine just made his biggest mistake, Elena. He stepped closer, his good hand cupping my face with devastating gentleness. He put his crosshairs on you, on what's mine to protect. The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, it made me feel safe for the first time in days. What are you going to do? I whispered. His smile was terrifying and beautiful. Whatever it takes. Damien's fury was a living thing, cold, controlled, and absolutely terrifying. He made phone calls through the night, his voice like cut glass as he spoke in rapid Russian. I caught words here and there: smert, death, uniktars, it destroy, voina, war, each one sending chills down my spine. This wasn't just about protecting a witness anymore. This was personal. When he finally ended the last call, dawn was breaking over the city. He found me curled on the couch, unable to sleep, still wearing my blood-stained clothes from the terrace. His blood. We're moving you, he said without preamble. Somewhere Constantine can't reach. Where? My voice was hoarse from fear and exhaustion. My estate. 40 minutes outside the city, fortified, private security force. His eyes were shadowed with fatigue, but his voice remained steady. I should have taken you there from the beginning. The estate was everything the penthouse wasn't, sprawling where it had been vertical, traditional where it had been modern. Stone walls, iron gates, guards positioned at intervals that suggested military training. It looked like a fortress. It was a fortress. Damien's men swept the property twice before allowing us inside. The interior was surprisingly warmed. Arc wood, leather furniture, artwork that spoke of old money and older tastes. A home, not just a showpiece. Guest wing is on the second floor, Damien explained, leading me through hallways lined with what looked like genuine Rembrandts. Private bathroom, sitting room, everything you need. We'd barely been there 3 hours when one of his men found it. Sir. Dimitri appeared in the doorway of what Damien called his study, but looked more like a war room. We have a problem. I watched Damien's expression shudder as Dimitri showed him something on a tablet. His jaw tightened, knuckles going white where they gripped the edge of his desk. Surveillance equipment, he said quietly, dangerously. Top grade, military spec. His eyes met mine. In your bathroom, bedroom, sitting room. Horror washed over me. How? Someone on my payroll? The words were clipped. Constantine has an inside man. The betrayal in his voice was unmistakable. This wasn't just about compromised security. This was about violated trust. In Damien's world, I was learning loyalty was everything. What do we do? I asked. He looked at me for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. A decision being made. I keep you with me. In my wing. In my home. He moved closer, his presence overwhelming. No one gets access without going through me personally. Damien, that's non-negotiable. His hand rose, fingers ghosting along my jaw without quite touching. You're mine to protect, Alina. That means I don't let you out of my sight. Until every traitor is rooted out and Constantine is. Neutralized. The possessiveness should have alarmed me. Instead, standing in his study with genuine fear still coursing through my veins, all I felt was relief. Safe. Despite everything, I felt safe with him. His wing was different from the rest of the house, more personal, less formal. Dark colors, comfortable furniture, books in Russian and English lining built-in shelves. A space that felt lived in, human. This is your room, Damien said, opening a door to reveal a bedroom decorated in deep blues and greys. Elegant but not ostentatious. Mine is through there. He gestured to a connecting door. It stays unlocked. If anything happens, anything, you come to me immediately. Understand? I nodded, unable to look away from that door. One piece of wood separating us. Alina. He waited until I met his eyes. I need your word. No matter what you hear, what you think is happening, if there's danger, you come to me, I promise. Something in his expression softened. Get some rest. You're safe here, but rest wouldn't come. I lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, hyper-aware of Damien's presence on the other side of that door. Around 2 a.m., I heard him moving, pacing, the floor creaking under his weight in a steady rhythm, back and forth, like he was standing guard, like he couldn't rest while I was in potential danger, like I was something precious he couldn't risk losing. I pressed my hand against the door, wondering if he could feel it, wondering what it meant that this dangerous man had claimed me as his to protect, wondering why part of me wanted to be claimed. The pacing stopped. For a heartbeat, there was only silence. Then his voice, low and rough through the door. Sleep, Elena. I'm here. Nothing will touch you. I closed my eyes, his words wrapping around me like armor, and for the first time since the gallery, I slept. Living in Damien's wing meant seeing the man behind the reputation. He woke at 5 a.m. every morning, the sound of his movements a quiet rhythm through the walls. Coffee at dawn, always black, standing at the window overlooking his estate. He read Russian poetry mostly, worn volumes with cracked spines that suggested he returned to them often. And late at night, when he thought I was asleep, I'd hear him on the phone speaking softly in Russian. His sister, I learned. checking on her at university in Boston. He was still dangerous. I watched him break a man's arm in his study after discovering the traitor who'd planted the surveillance equipment. The sound of bone cracking still haunted me. But with me, he was careful. Gentle, even. Like I might shatter if he moved too quickly. "You don't have to treat me like glass," I told him one afternoon, finding him in his study, reviewing security footage. He looked up, those grey eyes assessing. "I'm stronger than you think. I know exactly how strong you are, Alina." He stood, moving around the desk. "That's why I'm careful. Strong things break harder when they fall." The intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. We'd been living in this strange intimacy for a week, separate rooms but shared space. Formal distance but growing familiarity. I'd catch him watching me sometimes, something hungry and protective in his expression that made heat pool low in my stomach. "Damien," the lights went out. Emergency generators kicked in immediately, bathing everything in red emergency lighting. Damien's hand was on my arm in an instant, pulling me behind him. "Stay close," he commanded, already moving toward the door. We made it 3 steps before the windows exploded. Not bullets this time. Canisters' grey smoke pouring into the room with terrifying speed. Gas. My lungs burned on the first breath, my vision already blurring. "Elena." Damien's arm wrapped around my waist, hauling me toward the door. But the gas was faster. The world tilted, my legs giving out beneath me. Strong arms caught me, but not Damien's. I knew that immediately. Wrong height, wrong scent, wrong touch. These hands were cruel where Damien's were careful. Possessive where his were protective. Finally, Constantine's voice purred in my ear, Russian accent thick with satisfaction. "Let's see if Cross values you enough to trade." I tried to fight, but my body wouldn't respond. The gas had turned my muscles to water. Constantine's hand fisted in my hair, yanking my head back hard enough to bring tears. "Stop," I managed to gasp. His other hand wrapped around my throat, not squeezing, not yet, but the threat was clear. "You're going to be my message to him, little witness." He dragged me toward the shattered window. I saw Damien through the smoke, 3 of Constantine's men holding him back, his face a mask of pure rage. Blood ran from his temple where someone had struck him. "Let her go, Constantine." His voice was raw, desperate in a way I'd never heard. Constantine's grip on my throat tightened. Not enough to cut off air completely, but enough to mark. Enough to bruise. Enough to make it clear he could kill me whenever he chose. "She's mine now," Constantine whispered against my ear. "Just like everything you have will be." Damien moved like lightning. He threw off the men, restraining him with brutal efficiency, crossing the space between us in heartbeats. The sound of his fist connecting with Constantine's jaw was sickeningly loud. Constantine released me, and I collapsed. Couldn't breathe, couldn't see. The gas and the pressure on my throat combining into airless panic. Hands cupped my face, gentle hands. Familiar hands. "Alina, stay with me. Alina." Damien's voice, raw with an emotion I couldn't name. I tried to focus on his face, but darkness was closing in. The last thing I saw was his eyes, wild with something beyond rage, beyond fear. Then nothing. I surfaced to voices. Damien's, cold and deadly. "Get Constantine on the phone. Now." I woke to the feeling of someone watching me. My throat burned, each breath scraping like sandpaper. My head pounded with the after effects of whatever gas Constantine had used. But worse than the physical pain was the memory. His hand fisted in my hair, his fingers wrapped around my throat, marking me. I forced my eyes open to find Damien sitting beside the bed, still in his blood-stained clothes from the attack. His jaw was dark with stubble, shadows under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept. His hand held mine like a lifeline. "You're awake." Relief flooded his features, raw and unguarded. "Alina, He touched me," I whispered, my voice cracked and broken. The words came out involuntarily, the violation of it overwhelming everything else. Damien's expression turned to stone. "I know." He stood abruptly, pacing to the window with predatory energy. Every line of his body was rigid with barely contained violence. "He put his hands on you. Marked you. Hurt what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice was absolute. Not the casual claiming of before, this was something deeper, more primal. I touched my throat gingerly, feeling the bruises that would be visible for days. What happens now? I asked, though part of me already knew. Damien turned to face me, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. Cold fury and burning protectiveness warring for dominance. Now I keep my promise. He picked up his phone from the nightstand, scrolling to a number with deliberate calm. The eye of the hurricane. When he hit dial, his gaze never left mine. The call connected. Damien put it on speaker. Cross. Constantine's voice oozed satisfaction, calling to negotiate terms of surrender. This conversation is in English, Damien said quietly, his accent more pronounced with emotion. Because I want her to hear what I'm about to promise you. A pause. Then Constantine laughed. The witness. She's really gotten under your skin, hasn't she? Damien's free hand clenched into a fist. You touched her, Constantine. Put your hands on her throat. Bruised her skin. His voice dropped to something deadly. Marked what's mine. She's not. Let me be very clear about what happens next. Damien cut him off, each word precise as a blade. You have 24 hours to leave Chicago. Leave Illinois. Leave the country if you're smart. Disappear, Constantine. Because if I see you again, if I even hear your name whispered in this city, I will burn everything you've built to the ground. You're bluffing, Constantine said, but I heard the uncertainty creeping in. Am I? Damien's smile was terrifying. Your clubs? Ashes. Your shipping operations? Seized. Your accounts? Frozen. Your alliances. He paused. I'll make sure every organization you've ever dealt with knows you're a liability. You'll have nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And no one willing to help you. You'll destroy your own empire for one woman. I will burn it all down. Damien interrupted, his voice soft and absolute. Every brick, every dollar, every connection. I will reduce everything I've built to rubble and salt the earth. Behind me, if that's what it takes to end you. The silence on the other end was deafening. You think I'm exaggerating? Damien continued. You think this is posturing? Touch her again, Constantine. Come near her. Breathe the same air as her. His eyes locked on mine, burning with intensity. Give me a reason. I'll burn everything. And I'll make you watch every second of your empire crumbling before I end you. Cross, you're not thinking. I've never thought more clearly in my life. Damien's voice was calm now, certain. 24 hours. Run, because she's worth more than everything I own, and I will prove it. He ended the call. The silence in the room was absolute. I stared at him, this dangerous man who had just threatened to destroy his entire world for me. For a woman he'd known barely 2 weeks. You meant it, I whispered. Every word. Damien crossed back to the bed, kneeling beside me so we were eye level. His hand cupped my face with devastating gentleness, his thumb barely brushing the bruises on my throat. Every word he confirmed. You're mine to protect, Elena. Mine to keep safe. Mine to defend. His eyes searched mine. And I would burn empires to ashes before I let him touch you again. Tears slipped down my cheeks, not from fear, but from the overwhelming emotion of being valued so completely. Damien, don't. His forehead pressed against mine. Don't say anything yet. Just let me protect you. Let me show you what you mean to me. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. In that moment I knew Damien Cross had declared war for me, and he had no intention of losing. Constantine didn't run. The first explosion happened at 2 a.m., 3 days after Damien's ultimatum. One of his nightclubs on the north side reduced to rubble in seconds. No casualties, thankfully, because Damien had evacuated all his properties the moment he'd made his threat. He'd known Constantine would retaliate. The second explosion came at dawn. A warehouse containing shipments worth millions. Gone. By noon, a third. Another club, this one in neutral territory. A message to everyone watching. Damien Cross was vulnerable. I stood in his study, watching news coverage of the fires, my stomach twisted with guilt. Damien worked at his desk with eerie calm, making phone calls, moving pieces on a chessboard I couldn't fully see. "This is my fault," I said quietly. He looked up, expression unreadable. "This is Constantine's fault. His choice, his consequences. He's destroying everything you've built. He's destroying buildings." Damien stood, crossing to where I stood by the window. Stone and steel. Replaceable. His hand found mine. "You are not." The fourth explosion happened while we stood there. We watched the smoke rise from across the city, black against the afternoon sky. And spray-painted across the rubble, visible on every news camera, was Constantine's message. "She's not worth your empire." I felt the words like a physical blow. Damien's hand tightened on mine. "He's wrong," Damien said softly. "Let me show him how wrong." What followed was a masterclass in controlled destruction. Damien didn't respond with bombs or bullets. He responded with precision. Every shipment Constantine had scheduled, intercepted by federal agents who suddenly received anonymous tips, every bribed official, their corruption exposed to internal affairs investigators, every business partner, presented with evidence of Constantine's brutality that made them sever ties immediately. I watched from Damien's study as his empire struck back, not with fire, but with information. Death by 1,000 cuts, each one calculated to weaken Constantine's foundation. "You're not fighting him," I realized one evening, watching Damien coordinate with someone on the phone. "You're erasing him." He ended the call, his eyes meeting mine. "I told him I'd burn everything he's built. I keep my promises, but it came at a cost. 2 more of Damien's properties destroyed. 3 of his men injured in an ambush. And every day the news coverage intensified speculation about a gang war. Federal investigations launched, pressure mounting from all sides. "Stop," I said finally, unable to watch anymore. "Just stop, Damien. Let me go. Let me testify against him. Go into witness protection, whatever it takes. This isn't worth it." He crossed to me in 3 strides, his hands framing my face. "You are worth everything. Your businesses are just businesses. Your reputation means nothing without you." "Damien," my voice broke. "Elena, listen to me." His thumbs brushed my cheekbones. "Constantine was right about one thing. You're not worth my empire." My heart sank. Then he continued, "You're worth more. You're worth burning it all down and building something new from the ashes. Something better." His eyes blazed with intensity. "I was a monster before you. A man who dealt in violence and fear because that's all I knew. But you," his voice roughened, "you make me want to be more than that. You make me want to be a man worthy of protecting you." The raw emotion in his words shattered something inside me. All the fear, all the guilt, all the careful distance I'd maintained, it crumbled. I kissed him. He froze for a heartbeat, shocked. Then his arms came around me, pulling me against him with controlled passion, like he was afraid I might break, like I was precious and fragile and infinitely valuable. I kissed him harder, trying to show him I wasn't fragile, that I was strong enough for this. For him. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I pressed my forehead to his. "Then let me fight with you," I whispered. "Stop protecting me like I'm some delicate thing that needs to be locked away. Let me stand beside you. Let me help end this. Elena, it's too dangerous. Everything is dangerous now." I pulled back to look him in the eyes. "But I'm tired of being the reason you're at war. Let me be the reason you win." Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition that I wasn't going to back down. "What do you have in mind?" he asked quietly. I took a breath, steadying myself. "I have Constantine's weakness. I saw it the night he killed your accountant, and I think I know how to make him expose himself." Damien's eyes narrowed. "Tell me." "The man Constantine killed wasn't just your accountant," I said, pulling up news coverage on Damien's computer. Marcus Webb, former partner in Constantine's early operations, before you two split territory. Damien leaned over my shoulder, his attention sharpening. How do you know that? Because I heard him say it. Right before Constantine shot him, I pulled up another window archive news articles I'd been researching while Damien slept. Marcus was there the night Constantine made a deal with the Serbian cartel. He had evidence, not just financial records, but video footage, recorded conversations. Insurance, in case Constantine ever turned on him, which he did. Damien's voice was grim. But Constantine didn't get the evidence. Marcus was bringing it to you when he was killed. I turned to face Damien. Which means it's still out there, hidden somewhere Constantine can't find it, and you think you can locate it. I think I can make Constantine believe I already have it. I pulled up the final piece, Marcus's obituary, listing a sister in Milwaukee. Marcus told me something before he died. I didn't understand it then, but now... I met Damien's eyes. He said Lucia knows. His sister. She has the evidence. Damien was already reaching for his phone. I'll send someone... No, I caught his wrist. We'll use it as bait. We tell Constantine the first have the evidence, that I'm willing to trade it for my freedom. His expression darkened immediately. Absolutely not. Damien, you want to use yourself as bait to draw out a man who has already tried to kill you twice? His voice rose, controlled fury bleeding through. No. The answer is no. It's the only way to end this. I stood, facing him. He'll never stop, Damien. You know that. He'll burn your empire and then come for me anyway. But if we control the meeting, if we have the evidence to destroy him, I won't risk you. You already are. The words burst out, months of fear and frustration behind them. Every day I stay with you, I'm at risk. Every day you fight this war, I'm the reason. Let me take control of my own life. Let me have power in this. Something flickered in his eyes, recognition, maybe, of what I was really asking for. Not just to help, but to stop being the helpless victim. If anything happened to you, his voice was raw. It won't. I stepped closer, taking his hands. Because you'll be there. Your men will be there. We'll control every aspect of the meeting. I'll wear a wire, I'll have protection, and the moment we have Constantine's confession, federal agents can move in. Federal agents. He said it carefully. You said yourself Constantine has to be erased, not just defeated. I squeezed his hands. This does that. Permanently. And it keeps you from having to burn your entire empire to do it. Damien stared at me for a long moment, and I watched him war with himself, the protector versus the strategist. The man who wanted to shield me versus the man who recognized a winning play. Conditions, he said finally. You wear a wire and a tracker. My best men surround the location. I'm close enough to reach you in seconds. And the moment the second anything goes wrong, you get out. Relief and terror flooded through me in equal measure. Agreed, Alina. He pulled me against him, his arms wrapping around me tightly. If he touches you again, he won't get the chance. 2 days later, everything was in place. Constantine had agreed to the meet neutral ground, an abandoned warehouse in industrial territory. He wanted the evidence badly enough to risk a trap. I stood in Damien's study, preparing for what might be the last night of my life, while he checked my wire for the 3rd time. I can still call this off, he said quietly. No, you can't. I turned to face him. We're ending this. Tonight. The warehouse loomed against the night sky, broken windows like dead eyes watching our approach. I stepped out of the car alone as arranged, my heart hammering against my ribs. Constantine emerged from the shadows, his smile predatory. Elena Chun, brave or stupid? Neither, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. Tired of running. He circled me slowly, like a shark scenting blood. Does Cross know you're here? He knows. I met his gaze. He also knows I can handle myself. Constantine laughed, the sound echoing off metal and concrete. Let's test that. He reached out to touch my face again, the same possessive gesture from the gallery, from the attack. His fingers were inches from my cheek when Damien's voice cut through the warehouse like a blade. "I warned you! Constantine!" Damien emerged from the darkness like vengeance personified, his men flanking him in perfect formation. But it wasn't the weapons or the numbers that made Constantine step back. It was the look in Damien's eyes. Cold, absolute determination. "You touched her once," Damien said, his voice carrying through the cavernous space with lethal calm. "I gave you a chance to run. You chose war instead." Constantine recovered quickly, his sneer back in place. "You won't kill me, Cross. Too many complications, too many alliances that would crumble. You need me alive to maintain the balance. I don't need you at all." Damien's smile was terrifying. "And I don't need to kill you. I just need to erase you." He nodded once. The warehouse's perimeter lit up dozens of screens mounted on the walls, all displaying the same thing. Documents, photos, video footage, bank records scrolling past, shipping manifests, recorded conversations. A lifetime of Constantine's crimes laid bare. "What?" Constantine's face drained of color. "Marcus's insurance policy," I said, finding my voice. "His sister had it all. Every deal you made, every body you buried, every official you bribed. All of it. And as of 3 minutes ago," Damien continued, his voice almost conversational, "every major news outlet, law enforcement agency, and criminal organization in North America has received a copy. The FBI is particularly interested in your Serbian cartel connections." Constantine's composure shattered. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Damien gestured to the screens. "Your bank accounts in Zurich are frozen. Shipping operations in Miami and New York are being raided as we speak. And your associates," he paused, "they're all receiving the same message. Konstantin Petrov is a liability." "No." Constantine lunged forward, not at Damien, but at me. The closest target, the one he could still use as leverage. He never reached me. Damien moved with brutal efficiency, intercepting Constantine mid-stride. His hand caught Constantine's wrist, twisting with controlled violence until I heard the sickening crack of bone breaking. Constantine screamed. Damien forced him to his knees, his grip unrelenting. "I told you," he said softly, his voice deadly calm despite the violence. "Touch her again, and I'd burn everything. Your empire, your name, your future." He leaned close, speaking directly into Constantine's ear, but loud enough for me to hear. "You should have run when you had the chance." The sound of engines roared outside federal vehicles, lights flashing through the broken windows. Damien had timed it perfectly. Evidence delivered, confession recorded through my wire, authorities arriving at the exact moment to make the arrest clean and legal. FBI agents swarmed in, weapons drawn. "Konstantin Petrov, you're under arrest." As they read his rights, Constantine looked up at Damien with pure hatred. "You see what you really are?" he spat, blood on his lips. "She'll see the monster, and she'll leave. No one stays with men like us, Cross. We end up alone." Damien's expression didn't change, but I saw it, the flicker of vulnerability, the fear that Constantine's words might be true. "That's where you're wrong," I said, stepping forward to stand beside Damien. "I already know what he is. And I'm not going anywhere." Constantine's eyes widened with disbelief as the agents dragged him away. The warehouse emptied slowly, FBI collecting evidence, Damien's men securing the perimeter. Soon it was just us, standing in the wreckage of Constantine's empire. "You meant it," Damien said quietly, not quite looking at me. "What you said to him?" "Every word." I turned to face him fully. "You burned everything for me, Damien. You destroyed your enemy, exposed yourself to federal scrutiny, risked everything you built. Did you really think I'd walk away after that?" He finally met my eyes, and I saw fear there, not of Constantine or consequences, but of my answer. "I'm not a good man, Elena. I've done terrible things. The life I'm offering you, it's complicated, dangerous, built on a foundation of violence." "I know." I took his scarred hands in mine. "But I've also seen you try to be better. I've seen you protect people, care for your sister, sacrifice for those you love. You're not the monster Constantine thinks you are." His thumb brushed across my knuckles. "What do I do now? With you, With us. I smiled, seeing the future crystallizing before me. Now we build something new. The aftermath was chaos. Constantine's arrest triggered a power vacuum that sent shockwaves through Chicago's underworld. Organizations scrambled to claim territory, old alliances crumbled. And the federal investigation expanded to include dozens of Constantine's former associates. Damien navigated it all with calculated precision. But something fundamental had changed in him and us. He began dismantling the criminal aspects of his empire systematically. Operations that couldn't be legitimized, he walked away from. Money laundering fronts became genuine businesses or were sold. The violence, the intimidation, the shadow dealings, all of it stripped away piece by piece. I meant what I said in that warehouse, he told me one evening, 6 weeks after Constantine's arrest. We stood in his study, the same room where this had all begun. I want to build something better. Not just for appearances, but because you deserve more than a man who rules through fear. Damien, I started. Let me finish. He crossed to where I stood, his hands gentle on my shoulders. I've spent my entire life being my father's son. Building what he started, maintaining what he created. But you made me realize I could choose something different. Be someone different. His eyes held mine, vulnerable in a way I'd rarely seen. I want to be a man you can be proud of, Alina. Not a mafia boss you're chained to, out of fear or obligation. I was never chained to you, I said softly. I chose you. Freely. Knowing exactly what you were, and now? Knowing what I'm trying to become? I smiled, reaching up to cup his face. Now I choose you again. 3 months later, the Sinclair Gallery reopened with a new exhibition. My exhibition. Damien had purchased the building after Constantine's attack, renovated it completely, and offered it to me. Not as a gift, but as an investment. He owned the property, I owned the business. Equal partners. You're rebuilding your life, he said at the opening night, watching me greet guests and discuss the artwork. I wanted to help, not control. The distinction mattered. Everything about our relationship had shifted from protection and possession to partnership and choice. Damien still had security. Old enemies didn't disappear overnight, but I moved through the world freely now. My own career, my own decisions, my own power. His empire had transformed too. Legitimate businesses, real estate, set investments. The violence had been replaced with boardroom negotiations. The fear had given way to respect earned through business acumen rather than brutality. Miss Chun, one of Damien's men, Dimitri, who'd become something like a friend, appeared at my elbow. Mr. Cross would like to see you on the rooftop terrace. I found Damien standing at the edge, Chicago's skyline glittering before him. The same city that had burned with Constantine's retaliation, now peaceful under starlight. Remember when I said I'd burn everything for you? He asked as I joined him. I remember. I meant it. He turned to face me, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Nervousness. I burned the old empire to ashes. Everything my father built. Everything I thought defined me. I let it all go. Damien, but from those ashes, I built something new. Something better. He took my hands, his grip steady despite the emotion in his voice. A life I actually want to live. A man I can look at in the mirror. A future worth having. He knelt then, and my breath caught. Elena Chun, you saw me when I was a monster and believed I could be more. You stood beside me when I declared war. You helped me burn everything down and rebuild from nothing. His eyes shone in the starlight. Will you build the rest of it with me? Not as my protected treasure, but as my equal, my partner, my choice every single day. The ring he offered was simpler, sapphire the color of deep water, flanked by small diamonds. Beautiful without being ostentatious. Perfect. Yes, I whispered. Then louder. Yes. He slid the ring onto my finger, then stood and pulled me into his arms. His kiss was tender, fierce, and full of promise. Burned everything for you, he murmured against my lips. And I'd do it again without hesitation. I know, I said, smiling through tears. That's why I'm staying. Below us, the city glittered full of possibility, free from Constantine's shadow. We'd both been forged in fire, both transformed by what we'd survived. And from the ashes, we'd built something neither of us had expected, a love worth burning empires for, a love we'd chosen freely, a love that was finally, truly ours.